Good morning, fellow bonsaists, and thank you for coming back to my channel, the Irregular Bonsaist. Today, we're gonna be talking about beginnings, the beginnings of your new bonsai. How do I even begin treating my bonsai? What's the best time to work on it? I'm so afraid to mess it up. What should I do? Today, I'm gonna be telling you how to lose that fear. What kind of rules you have to be led by in order not to kill your tree and do the most amount of work possible. Today I say fear no more. I'm gonna be talking about caring for your plant at different stages, and I'm gonna be using analogies for it. So I hope you're ready for the analogy of the day. Let's go back to the basic. It really doesn't matter in what stage your tree, your plant, your bonsai is. You have to find the best time to do the work possible in order not to kill your tree. If you work on defoliation on the hottest day of the summer, you'll probably lose that tree. If you work on that tree when it's dormant for some species, you will lose that tree. So the most important thing to do when you get a bonsai, a plant, or a seedling, or a cutting, rooted, you have to know when to do work on it. There is no point on working on the tree if after the procedure, the tree is gonna die. So better not to do anything and wait until the right time than killing your tree. It's hard to do bonsai if you're impatient. Patience is a virtue, and you have to have it in order to do bonsais. You can't have a beautiful bonsai like the ones you see in expositions without being patient. For that artist to expose that beautiful bonsai to you, he had first to become a father. He had first to tend to that tree as a father or as a mother. Then that's the analogy of the day. Our trees, our plants, our kids, our babies, and this is how we treat them. I guess you kind of have to go through all the stages of growing before you see them become the person, the adult person you want them to be, or the successful person they want to be. It's kind of like that with the trees. The baby stage. Let's call it the baby stage. I would say it's between germination and a full year of the plant, going through 4 seasons or 2 extreme seasons like here, or any kind of cycle the plants do in your area. It's the baby stage, what I would call. On this stage, our seedling is so fragile and tender. The wrong move and you can break them, you can damage them forever, just like with a baby. On the other hand, if you care for them in the right way, they can be trained to do amazing things. Applying the analogy of the baby to our plant, this is the most critical and early stage you can do with the most basic training on the plant. Like eliminating a taproot, or forcing the plant to split, or just making the root spread in a more even way after cutting the taproot is one of the things that you can do on this stage. On this stage, and with the utmost care, you can bend the tree and train it to have the basic shape you want your future bonsai to have. At this stage, I would say bending the plant can be achieved in a few ways, at least the ways that I have tried. One would be to wire the main stalk of the plant and turning it to give it the silhouette you want to have in your final bonsai. What I mean, just as demonstration, I brought a little seedling on a planter and a little wire, kind of. We'll stick it in the soil. We'll rotate it on the plant, on the main stalk, and on the same This is not the technique, I'm just giving you an example. We'll talk about it in the future. On the same direction you wrap the plant around, you can start giving that curvature you want to have your tree to have, and that depth you want your tree to have, and let it grow like this. And that way you have that basic silhouette that you want to achieve with the tree. As I said, wiring is very, very basic skill that you have to know when you're doing bonsai. I'm gonna do a video or a few videos on it in the future, but for that I need you to subscribe so I can tell you when it happens and you get notifications on what happened in this side of the world. So like and subscribe. As I was saying, and going back to the topic of plants and analogy and babies and kids, I was telling you that wiring is very important, and doing it the right way at this stage will determine how your tree is going to grow in the future. Doing those kinds of bend when your tree is more mature is even more risky. It requires more techniques, and I highly recommend to do it on the seedling stage or a little after. But like, the hardest the trunk is and the more woody is, the more difficult it's gonna be for you to bend that branch without it breaking. There are two other ways I manage to give my plants a different angle of growing or direction besides the wiring straight up on the trunk, because sometimes that leaves marks, and when the tree is in this stage growing so fast, those wire can choke the trunk and leave some deep marks that eventually will disappear, but sometimes if you don't catch it in time will strangle the tree and kill it. So another thing you can do is use your seedling pot or else and kind of attach it to the base of the pot and pull that plant one way, yes, causing it to bend, and then letting it grow like this, which eventually will make the plant curve itself towards the sun or towards where it was growing eventually. I hope I explained myself. This will only cause it to bend one time, but it's more gentle on the tree. As I told you, you don't wrap the trunk around and leave marks or anything. You can even wrap the place where you're doing the connection with some tape or something, and cushion a little bit the connection between the trunk and the wire you're using. You can use a wire, you can use a zip tie, you can use a string, you can use anything pretty much to kind of pull the tree one direction and letting it grow the other one. The third way of bending your tree, and the most gentle on the tree, is using what the trees need the most to survive, the sun. Bringing back my seedling, our tree is growing this direction currently because the sun, it's coming from the east, west. It's coming behind the wall. If I would like to turn this tree and give it another angle of direction, I could just simply turn the pot around, and in a couple of weeks, this tree will naturally bend or keep growing in the direction of the tree, achieving a different curvature, even more gentle than the one pulling it from one side, because the tree kind of naturally curves into one direction. Now that we talked about our baby stage of the baby stage of the seedling, let's move on to the childhood of our plant or bonsai. Childhood for the plant is time for real training. Your plant had survived a shocking winter or a very, very hot summer, and now it's time to get cracking with the training. On this stage, we build the strength and the character of our plant or bonsai. In this stage, you cut, you trim, you're splitting, you're causing bifurcations and ramifications on the young plant. This will also be definitely the best time to move your plant out of that tiny pot into a bigger land. You can take that pot and put it on top of a bigger pot. You can transplant it into a colander, we'll talk about it in the future, and put it on another pot. You can move it straight out into your back garden and let it grow wild. This is the time to invigorate your plant. This is the time for the plant to get strength and character. After we bend it, after we did whatever we did to it before, this is the time to get cracking. I'm already working on that next video on how I grow my plants into big boxes to cause them to grow bigger. As you can see, this is my background, my big planters. This is one of the techniques I use because I don't have a back garden, so I use big boxes. I compost first, we'll talk about it, and then I put my plants on top and they grow exponentially. Allowing the tree to develop freely, of course, under your strict regulations, will get you to the end results much faster. Now let's talk about the dreaded adolescence. When your tree hits teenager, it's time for real boundaries. It's time to build that character on your tree that will kind of show up and be the markers of your adult bonsai. Now we strip that freedom we gave it as a child to grow vigorously, and we constrict him into a smaller and smaller pot each time, gradually, in order to adapt him to the miniature life. Growing a plant that was meant to grow outside for several meters under no restrictions in a small pot kind of makes the grower attentive to the plant, listening to the plant and the needs of these times when it's moved into a smaller pot, or while it's living on a small pot. It's crucial. You have to know when to water, and you have to know when to fertilize. You have to know when to cut, and you have to know when to do work on the trees. Now he has no reserves in the land or roots that are storing energy, and everything is inside that pot. Here is where watering, sometimes multiple times a day, composition of the soil, exposure to the sun, location in your house, it's very critical for the development of a thriving bonsai. Now our bonsai has all the characteristics and the base you could give him. Now our tree is an adult tree, and unrelated to being a bonsai that is 5 centimeters small or a tree that is 40 meters high. It's big enough to be left alone. Of course, being a bonsai, you always have to be attentive to the watering, to the fertilizations, but the tree is big enough for you not to be messing with it all the time. Now you get to enjoy your adult tree and hope that everything you did on the previous stages of the growing will pay off at this time. I really hope my analogy video was informative or even amusing for you, and that you find some useful information in it. I really hope you are already acquiring a bunch of plants to work on. Plant a bunch of seeds. Get some seedlings from your friends or your back garden. Go to your closest nursery and stock up in material. We'll work on it. You'll see here what to do with them, and we'll learn together how to transform those little plants into big bonsais. Thanks again so much for the support, guys, here from the Holy Land. Your Irregular bonsaist. Subscribe, like if you like the content, subscribe to our community, and see you guys on the next video.